Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 4 of the Big Reset. It's the last day of this big tomorrow-oriented journey, and it's dedicated to social innovation and social entrepreneurship. Why social innovation? In the past days, we covered the topic of how we can start a positive change by resetting the tech sector, moved on to exploring innovation in business and how we can spark innovation in different sectors. Yesterday, we talked on practice about the way we will be working towards this reset. And today we will be looking at the societal tomorrow and how we can include more communities and people in the whole movement. Social innovations are new social practices that aim to meet social needs in a better way than the existing solutions. Keywords here are working conditions, education, community, and health. Social innovation and social entrepreneurship, however, have the reputation of rather NGO and grant-driven activities, but this is a concept that we want to put into a different perspective today. How we can turn these models into also financially sustainable businesses that will have impact in the longer run. We'll start today's program with a fireside chat that I'm super excited about, and we'll be telling you a bit more in a minute. But before that, I want to walk you through the program of the day. At 10:30 on the main stage, we will have a keynote from entrepreneur Bhushan Trivedi, who has a track record of building social enterprises in India and who has recently moved to Bulgaria. Right after his keynote, he will be hosting a panel discussion with quite an interesting group of investors, entrepreneurs, and social activists. After Bhushan, and his panel, it's time for our great partner sessions. At 12, you can join the session by Junior Achievement Bulgaria on hacking the crisis through entrepreneurial mindset. At 1 p.m., there will be a demo session by Power of BG, who recently organized the biggest ever hackathon in Bulgaria on finding solutions against COVID-19 for businesses, people, and communities. At 2 p.m., you can join the webinar by the think tank MoveBG and the Changemakers Club. It will be on how does give-get culture help us in times of crisis. Last but not least, at 3 p.m., Reach for Change will be hosting an exciting demo session on social innovation in times of change. And this is a great day that deserves a hell of an opening, and I'm coming back to this fireside chat I promised. Our first guest today is a foreigner who has been observing the development of Bulgaria from both economic and societal perspective over 20 years now. And I think it won't be an overstatement to say that she has Bulgaria very near and dear to her heart. I'm super excited to have this conversation exactly with this person. And exactly on the matter of how we can bring more sustainable business models into the social innovation sector, because she is leading an organization that's too often associated with grants that we tend to think about as a free money that's not sustainable in the long run. Well, there might be something more to that. Without further ado, I want to welcome Nancy Schiller, the president and CEO of America for Bulgaria Foundation. Hi, Nancy. Delighted to have you as our first guest today. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, Alexandra, and I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. I thought I'd enjoy seeing the Basilica, having you see the Basilica behind me. I'm not in Plovdiv right now, but as I said, it's better to look at the Basilica than the dust on my bookshelves. So here we are. Thank you.
That's great, and actually a big part of our team is from Plovdiv, so the Basilica is very near to us as well.
We're looking forward to opening it soon, but we'll wait until the time is right for society.
So Nancy, you've been observing the development of the local economy and society for more than 20 years now. Could you briefly share your story with Bulgaria?
It has been a long journey. I was thinking back, it's actually been 28 years since my very first trip to Bulgaria. It was in April of 1992. And oh, what changes I've seen over the years. I've had the pleasure of living in Bulgaria for now nearly 4 years, but all those times before I was traveling back and forth. And still witnessing what's taken place is remarkable. I remember back then it was called the Sheraton, now the Balkan, and walking down Vitisha Boulevard, and it was empty storefronts. The rail line was still, the tram line was still going down the middle, and not many people out. And now the difference is remarkable, and that's just superficial, but it just represents a lot of the changes that are going on. My first trip in April was because of my involvement with the Bulgarian American Enterprise Fund. And that was an investment fund, a $55 million fund that was created through the US Congress through the SEED Act, Support for East European Democracy Act, that was passed in 1989, following the changes that were taking place in Poland, Hungary, and then what was Czechoslovakia, and then Bulgaria. And so our mission was to invest in small and medium-sized businesses to help spur the private sector. So our early experience in the early 90s was challenging. It was difficult. There was virtually zero private sector in Bulgaria at that time. And so we stumbled about trying to figure out what model would work, and finally came upon the right model, and ultimately grew that 55 million into nearly $500 million, all working with businesses, hotels, restaurants, manufacturers, light manufacturers, you name it. We were all over Bulgaria. So what we did was we took half of the original grant from the US government, repaid, second time in history that's ever happened in US history, and took largely what remained and endowed this foundation. So when we started this foundation in 2009, it had roughly $420 million. And our mission was much similar to the enterprise fund, but instead of investing, instead of lending money, we were granting money. But the mission was very much the same, to help spur the private sector so it can thrive, because as we all know, the backbone of a democracy is a strong middle class, a strong private sector. And so that's what we focus on in all of our initiatives in Bulgaria.
Can you help me make the connection to the topic that we are discussing today, social entrepreneurship? Yeah. And also, maybe it's useful to explain that we usually have this perception of NGOs, of social entrepreneurs and social innovation as a kind of an NGO, grants-driven initiative, but maybe there is more to it.
There is more to it. While we are a grant-making organization, we do much more than that. What we try to do is to spur investment through grants in companies, in businesses, in NGOs, so that they can grow and expand and pay it forward, so to speak. So if you look at some of the things that we've done recently, we've granted money to Arc Academy. So Arc Academy, many of your viewers have probably heard of it. What they're doing is tremendous. And so we helped them launch by granting them money. And what they're going to do then, once they're up and running, is convert this money into scholarships as they grow and generate more revenue. We've done a similar thing with Single Step. I know Ivan's going to be one of your speakers, or has been one of your speakers this week. And what he's doing with Single Step, with the LGBTI community, with the center, we helped fund that center. It's a co-working space. That'll generate the revenue so he can deliver the services to the LGBTI community. So it's a way to earn funding that then supports the businesses that they're, or the social services, the social enterprises that they're running. Similarly, Telerik Academy. I know Zarko is one of your speakers. We've been working with Telerik, and what we want to do is reach more children throughout the country with Telerik, train them in technology, and then ultimately they will become sustainable. So since the past 5 years with the foundation, we've been working more on sustainable models because the reliance on ABF is far too great. Recent studies have shown we represent roughly 40% of all the non-medical giving in the country. And that is not sustainable. That is not healthy for Bulgaria. And the dependence on ABF was far too great. So we're looking at all these different kinds of models, whether it's CSR, whether it's paying it forward in some way, donations, paywalls. We're trying to figure out how we can work most closely with the social enterprises to make sure that they can sustain beyond ABF support.
Yeah, I was actually about to ask you about this very thing, that there are economists and researchers who argue that grants are not an effective method to boost the economy in the long run. And they are proposing financial instruments like microcrediting, etc. that make it a bit more sustainable. And I was about to ask you about your take on this, if you have something to add, because you already mentioned several alternatives.
Yeah, we've have experience with microlending early in the early days of the Bulgarian American Enterprise Fund. That's where we started. And at one point in our portfolio, we probably had 300 or 400 microloans throughout the country. And they are very important because they do spur business. So they do provide access to capital to those who might not otherwise be bankable. But it comes at a very high cost of administration and your because the interest rate is what it is, the management cost is still high and you're not generating enough revenue to pay for that. So a blended model, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I don't think micro lending or grants are standalones. They work collaboratively, and that's what we're focusing on. So while we don't lend money, we do grant money, but we make sure that that sustainability is in place, that it's a stair step to sustainability. And that can be done through a combination of both. And that's where we've been focusing. So, you know, maybe the economists are onto something, but I think we're onto something too, because working in parallel works.
That's a great statement. Nancy, based on your observations from the past, obviously over 20 years, 28, um, can you outline the spheres where you saw the biggest achievements in Bulgaria and also the ones that need to more effort exactly now at this moment we are going through?
Well, this moment that you're going through is difficult all around the world. The United States obviously is no exception. What has been profound for me is witnessing the generosity of the Bulgarian people and how they've risen to this challenge in this very difficult time. This has been remarkable. I mean, I know Bulgaria has a strong, long history of philanthropy, but to see what's taken place has been very moving, and the support of fellow Bulgarians should be written down and noted for history. We've worked on several initiatives, and one of them is United Against COVID-19. And we launched this with the support of the Bulgarian Donors Forum, the American Embassy, and the US Chamber of Commerce. I'm pleased to announce that we've raised over 1 million leva through 26 companies, individuals, anonymous donors, and been able to support 106 initiatives around the country. And these initiatives came to us because they were already going on, whether they were businesses that converted their processes to make masks, to make PPEs, to make sanitization, whatever it might be, they converted. So we were trying to help them along those lines. Even restaurants that closed down, but they stopped to feed senior citizens' homes, or schools that previously were feeding children, no longer able to do that, we helped that. So these were initiatives that were pivoted by Bulgarians to support people in need. And I find this a wonderful testament to Bulgarians' generosity. And so that is where the hope is. That is where the future is. And I know in some cases, this is considered enlightened self-interest, right? Because none of us want to experience this. But my hope is, and my expectation is this enlightened self-interest will continue to be interest in community, and that this type of generosity continues and then helps the NGO sector even more.
Speaking of future and continuity, what is your vision for Bulgaria, and what do you think is the role of social innovation and social entrepreneurship in it?
Well, my vision isn't as important as your vision and every one of your viewers' visions, every Bulgarian's vision. We hear what Bulgarians are interested in, what they think is important for society. And that's what's important. That's where the role that ABF plays. And we don't want to impose any model on Bulgaria. It's what Bulgarians tell us. But what's important underlying it all, before you can have social entrepreneurship and social enterprises and thriving businesses, you need to have a functioning society, a civil society that works. You need to have a judiciary that is open and transparent. You need to have independent media. You need to have anti-corruption measures in place. So all these areas that have to come into play to allow the country to thrive, to allow businesses to thrive, which includes education. You need to have quality education available for all citizens. So I know I'm not directly answering your question, but I think what's most important is that Bulgarians need and recognize they need to have a functional system so that the private sector can thrive, so these social enterprises can grow and expand, because you need to rely on your justice system, that it will be a level playing field for all. And that's an area where the foundation focuses as well. Obviously, it's not a topic for your conference this week, but I think underlying everything that you do and everything you talk about, you have to have this working. And steps are being taken, there's good things happening, but there's work to be done.
Given the current situation, do you think it opens up opportunities exactly in these areas?
It does. We've seen the businesses pivoting. We talked about that a little bit earlier. We see what people are doing, coming up with ideas of how they can respond to this, whether, you're going to start making gloves, everybody's going to need them, or masks. But I think it's spurred a lot of creativity. One thing, when countries are experiencing low unemployment, entrepreneurship sometimes goes down. When unemployment goes up, it spurs entrepreneurism, because you don't have a job, you have to create something for yourself. So while Bulgaria might not feel the effects of the unemployment quite as dramatically as other countries, it will spur new ideas and new ways to address issues. And some of them may be social enterprises, some of them might just be straight out businesses, but it will create opportunities for people to look at things differently, because we're not talking, we originally were talking several weeks ago about a post-COVID environment. What we talk about now is a living with COVID environment, and that's different. Life will not go back to how it was. There's going to be changes, and how you adapt to those from a business standpoint and a social standpoint, we're waiting for those entrepreneurs to come forward.
And having all that in mind, if you, as America for Bulgaria Foundation, have to choose and prioritize one initiative related to social innovation that will boost the local economy in the longer run, what would that be?
It's a good question. And I've thought about this a bit, but what it all comes down to is education. Education, education, education. Real estate, it's location, location, location. I think for Bulgaria's future and where you want to invest is education. And we've seen some amazing pivots. You asked about how some of the social enterprises have pivoted during this time. You look at what the educational NGOs have done, and it is remarkable, whether it's Backpacks Without Borders that has worked with Khan Academy, whether it's Teach for Bulgaria, the online Uchase program. Many of these we've supported, the ARC Academy going online. So many people have pivoted, even ABLE, where they have their activator program, right in the midst of their training program, COVID came about, and they had to adapt and go online, like we're all doing, Zoom and all these other wonderful technologies that have come about that we can still see each other and talk to each other. They've adapted in such a profound way, but education is what's key for Bulgaria, and that's why we work with Telerik. They've adapted as well. That's why we work with Museko. They have online science training for children. All these different programs. I'm just amazed how this crisis has forced education to leap into the future. And it's something I know the ministry had been working on for some time, but this forced it forward, and Bulgaria has really done a good job of addressing that. And that's something that should continue, but that's what I find most impressive. And where, from our foundation standpoint with education, STEM is key. STEM, that's where Bulgaria excels, and that's your niche.
Well, great, Nancy. Thank you for giving us this positive outlook, actually, and also all those examples that we might miss in the whole context of the COVID situation, but are super important, especially looking at organization pivoting and also organizations being financially sustainable and bringing impact. I really hope that you'll be back to Sofia soon and we'll be
I will
back
be.
to the new normal and see each other.
I'm,
And with that, thanks a lot, Nancy, for taking
thank,
the time.
thank you. I'm looking forward to being back. It will be soon, once travel frees up again. But in the meantime, I have my Bulgaria. Oh, can you see that? My Bulgaria
Almost.
Starbucks cup that I'm drinking my tea out of, which is great. And I look forward to being back, and congratulations on the successful initiative that you have going on. And to my friends in Bulgaria, stay well. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alexandra. Bye. Ciao.